If you've ever worked in regulatory or quality or product development with prefilled syringes, you know exactly what I mean. The simplest projects can sometimes cause the biggest challenges. Now, if it's your first time tuning into Let's Combinate, welcome. I am Subhi Saadeh. I'm your host, and I'm someone who spent years working on prefilled syringes. I've been involved with vaccines, biologics, small molecules in prefilled syringe systems, each with its own unique challenges. But what's really funny is one of the hardest projects that I ever worked on was filling water for reconstitution into an off-the-shelf pre-filled syringe. And you'd think that would be easy, but the regulatory complexities and the technical hurdles around trying to accomplish that made it actually a surprisingly tough assignment. And it's a good case study for what we're talking about today, because what I wanted to break down is what makes a pre-filled syringe a combination product, but more importantly, what that classification actually means, whether you're developing a simple product or the next big thing in terms of a drug that's going into a prefilled syringe. Understanding this, I think, is a key to success. So I've done other episodes in terms of detailed breakdowns of different regulatory pathways for combination products and things like that, and we'll probably do more in the future. In this episode, I go through the US framework, the EU framework, and I speak about rest of world broadly. But if you are interested in hearing about the different regulatory frameworks globally and diving into the weeds, I can do another episode on that and maybe bring somebody on to discuss that from a regulatory point of view. So let me know in the comments below if you'd be interested in that. I'd love to hear from you. And as always, please like the video and subscribe. It really helps out. Understanding prefilled syringes, I think, is a key in pharma these days. So first, what is a combination product? The definition varies around the globe, but broadly speaking, it involves combining two or more regulated components, a drug, a device, or a biologic. In the US, the FDA defines this under 21 CFR 3.2E, and they include examples like drug-coated stents, or in this case, a prefilled syringe. But calling something a combination product isn't the end of the story. And you've really got to ask, what does that classification mean for its regulatory path? And so here's where the syringe becomes a perfect case study in understanding how regulations vary a little bit across the globe. And I will add one quick caveat to say that there is a lot of harmonization activity going on. I think that in the, say, 5-10 year horizon, we are probably going to see some changes and hopefully some alignment, but this is just going through what the current case is. A standalone syringe, just like an empty syringe, is just a device. Almost universally falls under the category of medical device. It's used for general fluid injection and doesn't contain any drugs or biologics. There's different ISO standards for glass barrels, plastic and COP barrels, stoppers. Empty syringes and their components are broadly understood as devices or device components. But when you take that syringe and pre-fill it with a drug or biologic like a vaccine or a small molecule, it becomes a combination product. You're dealing with the integration of a device and a drug, and that changes how it's regulated. I think here's where things get a little interesting. In the US, a prefilled syringe is classified as a combination product. However, the FDA doesn't stop there. They look at primary mode of action, or PMOA. Is the syringe primarily delivering the drug? If it is, then it's a drug-led and regulated by CDER. If it's a biologic, CBER takes the lead. One example that I've been given, and I can't validate this, so take it with a grain of salt. If a prefilled syringe is intended to be the drug delivery mechanism for a device, if the prefilled syringe is intended to only be a drug delivery system for its contents, then it stands to reason that in almost all cases, that would be a drug-led combination product, to use the US terminology. The kicker is that even if the drug leads, the syringe as a device still has to meet some of the regulatory requirements for devices, like usability testing, like making sure that it meets safety standards and quality requirements. And that's where the 21 CFR Part 4 requirements come in. In Europe, prefilled syringes are also considered combination products, but they're regulated as medicinal products within an integral device. This means that the drug or biologic takes center stage, but the syringe still has to comply with MDR, particularly Article 117 and the GSPR, which requires a notified body opinion to certify that the medical device component meets requirements before submission. Now, a few others. In China, prefilled syringes are combination products in name, but the regulatory path leans heavily on the drug side. A drug or biologic drives the approval process, and device-specific requirements are not really as well outlined as they are in the US. Japan is similar to China in that drug or biologic leads the regulatory process. However, Japan does have unique requirements if the syringe involves biologics or things like ATMPs. So the main takeaway is that the same product has totally different regulatory approaches depending on where you are. What does this mean? And I think this is where it starts to come together. Like I said in the intro, the real question isn't just, is a syringe a combination product? It's, what does that classification mean for the jurisdiction that you're operating? And to summarize, in the US, it means that the device component must meet stringent requirements alongside the drug. In the EU, you've got to comply with the MDR, Article 117, and the GSPR, in addition to providing the drug effectiveness to EMA. In China, Japan, Malaysia, Saudi Arabia, and a lot of other jurisdictions, in many of the other jurisdictions globally, there is some definition around whether or not a prefilled syringe is a combination product, but they don't go as far as the US and EU yet in terms of outlining very specific requirements. A lot of it is outlined in guidances and guidance documents and things like that, but they haven't gone to the level of codifying it in law. And I think this matters because it impacts everything from product design and testing to making sure you have the right approvals timeline. So as they say, success happens when preparation meets opportunity. And if you're developing a product like a prefilled syringe, understanding these differences upfront can really save you time, resources, and headache. The more important question is, what does that combination product mean in the jurisdiction that I'm targeting? And that's where the success lies. So thank you all for tuning into this episode of Let's Combinate. And I hope that helps clarify things. It's one of the most basic questions in combination product. And as always, please like, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts, comments in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you.